Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick.
And I'm Steve, the bassist for Lipstick.
And welcome to the Lipstick Panel. The Lipstick Panel is a weekly ranking show where we, the members of Lipstick, rank a topic alongside special guest panelists. We don't do ratings on this show, we do rankings. The way it works is that we individually have each panelist rank the subject in order from best to worst and assign point values to the rankings. We then add up the points to the panel and discuss the collective opinion of the Lipstick Panel. Rather than just having it be the opinion of one random dude on the internet, we decided to be more fun, fair, and positive to discuss subjects in this way. This week, we're ranking the songs from the Final Fantasy I soundtrack. Our guests today are the hosts of the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast, Ultima Final Fantasy. Please welcome Joseph DeGolyer and Kaleb Schweiss. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
And thank you for being here.
Hey, did I screw up your guys' list? I only did the NES ones. Schweiss didn't tell me there was a whole email chain
right
going
list.
on.
So
I did the right one.
Yeah, no, like I did the full list, and like halfway through, I was like, wait, what's with this? These bubble sounds weren't possible on the NES, and then I tracked down the original soundtrack, and I was like, Greg, half these songs aren't even on there.
I just decided, for simplicity's sake, just to do the remastered version, because that's the version most people are familiar with at this point. It's the same on the PS1 as on the GBA and all the other versions, so I'm like, you know what, we're just ranking it based upon the remaster, and if it wasn't on the list, I'm just like, whatever, it just gets less points.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just hope I have something to say about the bonus songs.
It would just suck to completely screw over the list and the point value for those that weren't on the original game.
The way I look at it is, this is a collective opinion, so your opinion, my opinion, doesn't necessarily matter. It's all of these, opinions combined into one. So it's like, the song we all put as number one probably won't be number one. It's like, oh shoot, it's so much lower than I wanted it to be.
That's a good. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this stacks up.
Yeah.
I barely glanced at Schweiss's list when I got mine ready.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah, this will be.
Let's talk a little bit about the Final Fantasy I soundtrack. The game originally came out in 1987. The music was by the legendary Nobuo Uematsu. First game of the series. Introduced a lot of classics still, used in the series today, like the Crystal theme, the main theme, Victory Fanfare. It's originally a NES game, so obviously the music had to be very simple and melodic. But the songs have held up very well, I think. They've been performed by orchestras, up to this day. So obviously, people have a lot of affection for this soundtrack. But I want to sort of go around the panel and have each person talk about their history with Final Fantasy and the FF1 soundtrack. So we'll start with our esteemed panelists, Kaleb and Joe.
Who wants to go first? Kaleb?
Sure, I'll go. So Final Fantasy I, honestly, when I think back on the last 3 years of Final Fantasy, and I think of great Final Fantasy soundtracks, this one isn't one that comes to mind immediately. However, when I was re-listening to it for this podcast, I thought there was some great stuff in there. Like, I mean, we basically recently we've been playing Final Fantasy Tactics, and decent soundtrack, not Nobuo Uematsu, and we went back to Final Fantasy I to prepare for this panel, and I was like, you know what? This is actually there are some really great pieces in here, especially for a game that came out in 1987. Like, it's quite impressive. I mean, the series, as we know, has a long-running history of excellent soundtracks, but it's pretty impressive to me that it began from the get-go. Like, they knew they wanted the games to have a great soundtrack. Like, I would say great soundtrack came before great story. For the
series, sure. Yeah, so me and you have been going through the entirety of the Final Fantasy series. Me and you, Schweiss.
Yes.
Sorry. And we have seen we've been going in this weird order where we start with the main series and then work on spin-offs and stuff like that. And Final Fantasy series, if you're not familiar with it, huge series of games. There's like 50 games on there. And we decided as a podcast, we were going to go through all of them. Me and you had both had some experience of playing Final Fantasy games. I'd played maybe like half of the main series, and I had played FF1, and I don't think you did, right?
No, I played it a little bit before. It was like a few months before, because the reason why we started the show is because I wanted to play we kind of both wanted to play through the whole series, and I was trying to play 1, and I just couldn't find the motivation to do it. Right. So then I found it with that.
So we did play 1. Here's what and you're right. It starts immediately. The series starts. Fantastic soundtrack. Now, I actually think the soundtracks get better as the series goes on, especially in the mid or the PS1 era and the Super NES era. I think are just golden age, not only just for the games but the soundtracks as well. And it's primarily just one composer, Nobuo Uematsu, and it really shows his genius that he was able to create such a strong soundtrack with such simple, I guess, old technology, stuff that was making the NES soundtrack, which I don't know any of the technical aspects of. I don't know how they make 8-bit soundtrack, but
I'm trying to pull up my notes here. It's like 4 channels.
Yeah, it's like 4 channels, and he has to he creates these incredibly complex themes, and I know he has very limited space that he can use in order to do that. Now, what the NES score, I listened to the straight up 8-bit one before today and earlier this week as well. I noticed that it's kind of iconic of the late 80s, early 90s. Both the game and movie scores were super melodic and some would say over the top, but I personally think that's kind of where they need to be. That's my own taste. If you listen to scores from the early 90s and scores from the late 80s, everything was meant to be hummable. I think this was like post John Williams-ish sort of thing. So everybody wanted a John Williams kind of theme. Mm-hmm. And so everything had to be big, over the top, and hummable. And I think that's what I get here with the melodies through the FF1 soundtrack, is that almost all of these soundtracks I did not forget. As soon as it started, as soon as I revisited the soundtrack today, I was like, I know this song, and I could hum the whole thing all the way through. Yeah. And I've only played 20 hours worth of this game, which for a Final Fantasy game is not a lot. And there are Final Fantasy games further on, especially the spin-offs, especially the later games in the teens, like Final Fantasy 13 and stuff like that, where a couple tracks I'll remember, and then there's a whole lot that's just not memorable. So FF1 is really like quite the pinnacle of game soundtrack right off the bat with the series.
Yeah, I agree. I think this soundtrack and a lot of the soundtracks from that era, because they were so limited in what they could use, they had to make sure that whatever music they made was great, so it wasn't annoying on the player. So that's I fully agree with that statement. I think there was a stronger emphasis on melody back in the day, and it's one of the greatest game soundtracks of all time. I'm going to go briefly into my history with the series, kind of in relation to getting ready for this podcast. So I'm a big fan of the series. I played a lot of the main series games, a lot of the spin-off games, but before this podcast, I hadn't actually beat Final Fantasy 1. And I said to myself, I've got this big repertoire of skill sets that makes me a legitimate critic of this album. I've been listening to the soundtrack for 15 years. I've been a member of an orchestra. I've worked with members of Warrant and Quiet Riot. I've played 30 plus of these games and the spin-offs and all that stuff. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to be on this podcast with Kaleb and Joe. I should just see if I can beast out this game in time for the podcast to get the full experience of the music and the context of the game. And so I beasted through the game, beat it in a little under 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You beat my time. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, and what's funny is, so I did it about 2 weeks ago, because that's when we were originally going to do the show, and I had a gig that weekend. And so I'm like, shoot, can I beat this game in between work and the Lipstick show on Saturday? I'm like, oh, shoot, yeah, I got it done in 7 hours. But I was trying to rush it to get it done in time for the show, and was able to do it. I'm like, oh, 7 hours, nice.
I am impressed. I got down to 9:07 was my best time on this game, which on howlongtobeat.com I think it's still a record holder. So
it's like 2 hours on howlongtobeat.com.
Oh man, someone destroyed it. It wasn't that 2 years ago. When
is that the site you used?
Yes.
Oh wow.
I used howlongtobeat.com and I had the top one for like a year and a half. and that was the last time I checked it a couple of years ago. So I guess I've been blown out of the water.
Blown out by a fellow host too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, technically my time was 6 hours and 57 minutes, but I will give you credit, Joe. I used your party of 2 warriors, 2 red mages. That was I wasn't playing for fun. I was playing for efficiency. I'm like, I'm getting this done. And with that momentum behind it, I'm just like, I just want to beat this game and be done with it. That's the only way I would finish that, because Final Fantasy 1 meanders so much, and you can immediately lose interest unless you have that momentum going.
It does meander. We were just introduced to Dungeons and Dragons a few weeks ago, so neither of us had played Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, it's the same game.
We realized, that's what these old school RPGs are. They're just this.
Yeah.
Only no DM. It's just the game. So,
except all the D&D based ones are completely unforgiving. Have you ever played the original Bard's Quest? It sucks.
Well, I would say that the first Final Fantasy is absolutely unforgiving in that sort of respect. Yeah, we called it the 1980s FU feel. So when a game like Final Fantasy 11 later on in the series was as unforgiving as FF1, we then called it, that 1980s FU feel. And that's really just D&D.
Right.
It's just unforgiving and slow and meandering, and you're there to explore the world, as opposed to, what the later series became, starting with FF2, was now you're part of this epic story, and there's something pulling you specific through the world, as opposed to just exploration. Which FF1 was kind of based on exploration and choice, and gave you no information whatsoever. So
having played like 4 editions of D&D, I feel like I must jump to its defense. Also, having grown up in Wisconsin, it's a great game. Gary Gygax was a man among men.
Is he the one who created it?
Yeah, him and David Arneson, I think. I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong.
Yeah, we were just introduced, and we've had a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, this is usually Steve's D&D night, but they didn't have it this week, so it's convenient to talk about something that's very D&D-esque.
It's been 2 weeks since I've played. I'm kind of jonesing here.
Did you play Final Fantasy, Steve?
I didn't know. That's a good segue, actually. So my experience with Final Fantasy is I played half of...
6.
It was 6. The one with the opera scene. And I played about half of Mario RPG, and that is the entirety of my JRPG experience.
Wow. And you're... if you like D&D and you got lots of time, I would suggest playing Final Fantasy without a guide.
So here's sort of the trick with that.
I do make chiptunes, though, so I've got that going for me.
Nice.
With our Final Fantasy experiences, so we're both been very active musicians in the Nashville scene, so I've had a very on and off relationship with Final Fantasy games, where when I wasn't gigging a lot, like before moving to Nashville, I got back into playing Final Fantasy. Like, I played it as a young kid. I started super early. I started playing when Final Fantasy VII was a new release, and I was like 6 or 7 years old. So I've been with the series a long time, played it into my early teens, started doing band stuff and got really active with that, had a little bit of a lull, went back to playing it, and then was in 5 active Nashville bands and had 0 time for playing the series, but then rediscovered it with my wife, and we've been playing through a lot of the games together, and I've had time to get back into it because it's a hobby that we enjoy together, versus Steve is still like, I'm now in less bands than he is, so I have more time to do it, but it also counts as wife bonding time, so that's kind of like a cheat code that allows me the time to play the games.
I don't have a wife to bond with, so yeah, I just play more music.
Yeah, he doesn't have a wife to bond with, which means he plays less Final Fantasy and more music.
I just read the Wikipedia page on the NES audio hardware, so I know how that worked.
Oh, see, that's
And then I create chiptunes by dropping samples into Reaper and pretending that's the same thing.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Fascinating.
So, but that's actually why I really love this panel, because there's this spectrum of experience where you guys are resident Final Fantasy experts. You have played and beaten more of the games than I, and you've got a really good experience with it. I'm sort of the middle ground guy. I've played a good chunk of the games, including spin-offs, beaten a good chunk of them, and have a wide musical background, which is ironic for this episode because usually Steve is the nerd of the two of us, where
Right.
he's the one with the greater expertise in nerd subjects, and I'm sort of just like, yeah, Greg's the badass rock dude who hangs out with guys in Motley Crue and Rats, and Steve's like, I'm the one who plays D&D, but this is the one episode where I get to out-nerd him, and it's fantastic.
I play D&D and no math.
But then Steve here is the one who's purely judging this based upon the music without the context of the game. He is only listening to the songs and judging them as music. So
I did watch Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Does that count?
Oh,
And also Spirits Within.
it counts a little bit. It counts a little bit.
Did you like it?
I liked
says
when the dude's ringtone was the victory music. That was neat.
dilly dally, shilly shally.
Oh, I also played the Final Fantasy tabletop RPG.
Okay, we don't know what that is and need to know what that is.
It's Dungeons and Dragons, but with Final Fantasy rules.
Oh, okay.
wow.
Was this like an official thing?
I don't know for sure. If it
Okay,
was
so-
official, the guy who ran our game was like a semi-official play tester, but it might have just
Okay.
been a fan game.
I mean, if it was official, someone would have angrily emailed us at some point about it.
Are you going to play this? I don't see this on your list of video games.
By the way, you guys should totally add Chocobo Racing to your list. It's short and fun. There's actually a good story mode, and you can play as Cloud, Squall, and a Captar. I mean, come on.
We did say we will, but that was much later. I don't know how far in the podcast you are, but
That was like a few weeks ago. We said we would.
and if you haven't heard our
it.
Dirge review yet,
I just got to that. I'm like at episode 101.
oh, you got some time.
I got some. I mean, I've got a lot of downtime at work where I can just grind through those podcasts. So
That's the way to go, man. That's the way to make work fly. Is podcasts. I recommend audiobooks and then music occasionally. I gotta dig back down into the music.
this is a tangent, but whatever.
Go ahead.
I don't think that the music of the Final Fantasy series necessarily has to fit within the confines of the world. So if I am playing Final Fantasy IV, for example, and let's say most of the music has kind of a Middle Ages feel, if Nobuo wants to throw in a more rock-feeling track, I am okay with that as long as it is memorable, sounds cool, and doesn't completely shift the focus of the scene. Like, I think the way he has variety in the soundtracks is good and interesting versus you have 12 where it all sounds kind of medievally, but it's all kind of boring. I'd rather have something that's musically diverse and interesting over something that is consistent with the world, but is just a snooze fest, is my personal opinion on how I like my Final Fantasy music. What do you guys think?
Well, that's obviously this is all taste, but personally, like I can't stand it when they put a pop song in a like a medieval in a movie that's a time period piece movie. Like
What is
it drives
Hatsune
me.
Miku doing in this game?
So you're saying you weren't big on A Knight's Tale?
Well, that's a different case than you know.
I know.
But
Let's put Queen in anything.
in general, if I'm watching just a movie about, I don't know, Victorian era England, if the Clash comes on in the middle, it's gonna be weird.
What about Titanic?
What about Titanic?
That's a modern song. And
As a Canadian, I will
that's
fight you
actually-
over any bad opinions you say about Celine.
I think that's in the credits. I don't think that's played during the movie. is
All
it?
right, we can have a
Anyway.
tense piece over that.
Anyway, so I kind of disagree. However, in general, I disagree. But there are exceptions, and I think that some of these older NES games, anything that's like Sprite era, I think you have a lot more leeway having to do with like, oh, is it realistic? And it's like, well, who cares? I mean, it's a little RPG game.
yeah, you're playing a guy with a head the size of his torso.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares.
So,
I'm going to bring Final Fantasy VIII into this. I think the Laguna battle theme, I've heard a lot of people complain like, oh, it's too much like a disco soundtrack. But it gets you pumped and it's cool. Versus Eyes on Me, even though I don't hate it as much as you guys do, I would say Eyes on Me is more distracting than the Laguna battle theme. I'm okay with stuff like the Laguna battle theme if you have like something that's different musically but not to the extent of like a random pop song, if that makes sense.
Well, even then, I would say FF8 has sort of modern elements mixed in, including like cars and stuff like that. So as far as like, there's no real time period for FF8, and so I can understand. Although I still don't like the Laguna theme. I'm sorry to say.
I can think of it in my head though.
I'm okay. That's true. It is memorable. I can understand like the use of like the keyboard, the organ keyboard kind of thing. Like that's not really, as far as it fitting in the world. I don't think that bugs me at all.
Yeah.
There's a keyboard later on in that game.
Yeah, there is. I think for me, there are times where the soundtrack can be distracting. Like, as much as I love Cosmo Canyon, like when you go to Cosmo Canyon the first time, like that music is pretty intense and it's awesome. But it's like so awesome and so big that it almost distracts you from the game itself.
Cosmo Canyon from FF7.
Yeah, and it is one of my favorite pieces in the series, but it's just it's almost too much.
It's
like when you
too
get in there,
good.
It's like, I'm like, geez. I'm trying to talk about like the life of the planet here. We got this like.
I totally disagree. I think it's amazing.
I think it's amazing too, but it
doesn't matter.
But I think there is something to be said about a more ambient soundtrack at times, depending on what's happening at that moment.
That's how willing suspension of disbelief works, though, right? It's super subjective what you find distracting. Some people, like, they love disco and they'll hear a disco song in a soundtrack and be like, yeah, this fits, it's fine, whatever, I love that. And some people be like, I hate this genre, so when it shows up, if it's an anachronism, I don't like it.
Well, I think disco can work if it's in Saturday Night Fever or any movie of that era, or it's used ironically. That's about my range on pop and in a bunch of stuff.
Every video game needs more Scissor Sisters.
I do not get that reference.
Before your time.
How old am I?
I'm just slightly older than everyone else on this show.
So there is a total spectrum here. If Steve is the pure music guy, Greg is still does music for basically like a huge part of his life. He's living in Nashville,
right,
kind of thing, and working on that stuff. I wanted to be a rock star up until I was 18 years old. Yeah. So there's me, and then Schweiss, I think.
If you play guitar, you could move to Nashville and join our band. I'm just saying.
Yeah, do you want to be in a band?
I always want to be in a band, but I can't do any more projects. I'm done. I'm done.
No, I understand that so well.
You're killing us.
Too many video game podcasts. And then Schweiss played the trumpet? No, clarinet.
Clarinet, yeah.
Clarinet for a little while.
I was a clarinet rock star in high school.
Some musical experience for this side.
I cannot play the guitar, though.
No, you cannot.
Yeah,
Rocksmith says I can kind of play it, but it's being fooled.
Yeah, give us just 1 sec. Steve is dealing with the roommate's dog.
All right. We will give you 1 sec.
Give me 1 sec. So this is the part where you would edit this awkward bit out or leave it in. I don't know, depending on how humorous our banter
totally
is.
leave it. We're brutal.
Well, they're doing their own version. So this will be like the Richard Donner cut versus the Richard Lester cut. Superman 2 style.
I've never seen Superman 2.
See.
It's the best Superman movie, but it's not saying much.
I got my friend Caleb Craig over there. He's shaking his head furiously at that statement.
He is a little triggered though because of tactics earlier.
Yeah, we had a disagreement on tactics, and he got real mad.
Don't want to spoil much more than
Right.
that, but he was going.
I mean, I'll probably check out the review. I'll cheat and listen to that one early. I did like Tactics quite a bit, so I was looking forward to when you guys got to it.
Yeah, we did mention that we were listening to FF1 soundtrack.
Ironically, that was the first Final Fantasy I beat was Tactics.
Oh, really? What do you think of Tactics?
I liked it a lot. It's one of my favorites. I was actually looking through an old interview I did for Lipstick the other day, and they were asking about how we were naming the album Lipstick 2 and whether or not that would be a trend. And I said that we were probably going to name the first albums Lipstick 1, 2, 3, and 4 after the tradition Led Zeppelin started, but we'd probably keep the tradition going because I'm a big fan of the Final Fantasy series. And I liked the way that each main installment was different and you would compare and contrast them with each other. And then I listed off what I thought were the best games in the series, which was 7, 4, 9, Tactics, and Chrono Trigger if it was a Final Fantasy.
Also, 50 million Tortelvis fans can't be wrong was already taken as a title, so we couldn't use that for our 5th album.
I'm wondering though, if you're gonna number it that way, if you make a double album, are you gonna call it 4, 2, and stuff like that?
We actually have plans for a special edition of our 2nd album, and it's going to be called Lipstick 2.8 Penultimate Prelude Final Chapter Remix Birth by Rock.
That is a lot to take in. That's,
Because Kingdom Hearts.
there you go. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
I watched the Under the Sea scene from that on YouTube. That's almost playing an RPG.
Oh, the Under the Sea stuff in Kingdom Hearts is the worst thing in that game. Oh, I just had flashbacks. I had forgotten that. My memory, I had blacked that out in my mind.
Good.
Oh, there's made up songs in that game. In that
Are you talking
area.
Kingdom Hearts 2 where they make up the songs? That part is...
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 2. They're making up songs, and I'm ready to vomit.
I skipped that part.
Ready.
It wasn't worth it.
I don't think it is a required part.
Yeah, no, as soon as I'm like, so wait, these are just song mini games? Yeah, I'm out.
Ugh. It was bad. It was bad. Okay, so what are we talking about
Now we're going to actually do the ranking. Let's talk about the ranking of this soundtrack. We've, I think, sufficiently bantered.
Yes.
Banter phase done.
Banter phase done. Steve has seen the finalized list, aka I sent it to him in an email in case my laptop dies because I forgot my charger for some reason. But I do have the finalized list. So this is going to be new for you guys because you haven't seen what the final ranking is. And I mean, I just saw it a few minutes ago. So we're going to start from the bottom up. All right, so we're going to start what we ranked as not necessarily a bad song. So I want to preface this with this list is not this song at the bottom sucks necessarily and this song at the top is great. It's just this is what we as the panel decide was the weakest on an otherwise amazing soundtrack.
I agree to a point.
I mean, no, you're allowed to say it sucks, but I'm saying that as a preface for listeners of the show in general. We're going to be reviewing eventually some really great classic albums where there's just 10 good songs. If you review a Beatles album, everything on it is good. Just what's the least good or least mind-blowing?
The message of our band is sort of general positivity and encouragement. So, I mean, occasionally there's just going to be bad content that we're going to rank. But, you know, we're trying not to be super mean about it.
Right.
You brought on the wrong people.
All right.
Yeah.
I've never listened to Kiss, and we're doing a ton of those.
Yeah.
I'm going to be biting my tongue for entire episodes.
Oh, just like the people in Kiss biting your tongue.
Oh, nice. Nailed it.
I mean, we do have a very close connection to that band where I'm going to say nice things about them. Like, my friend's bills get paid because of being in Gene Simmons' solo band, so I'm going to say great things about Gene Simmons. All right, let's do this thing. The weakest song on the Final Fantasy 1 soundtrack, according to this illustrious panel of experts and Steve, is the Crystal Restoration. We put that at the very bottom.
That's because it's not on my list.
Right?
That's right. It did not get very many points. I put it as the second worst song. I think Kaleb put it towards the bottom.
I also put it as the second worst song just because, like, yeah, it was one of those ones they added for the remake. And, like, that's not right.
Yeah, it was just too short to enjoy. I mean, you need a little bit of that length and that girth to enjoy something. And this one just doesn't have it. It's just a little nubby, you know.
It's there's a few even on the shortened version that I listened to the soundtrack. There's
the true version.
There's a few tracks that are just like 5 seconds long, and I don't know how to rank those. So you just kind of like put them towards the bottom. I think sounds like that's one of those.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And you know, some of them are tough because once you get to the victory fanfare, it's like, oh shoot, this is 10 seconds, but 10 seconds of amazing, and that's when it gets really hard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next up is another short song that none of us care about, To Someplace Deep. I think basically the same commentary everyone else had, just like, whatever, it's just a short little track before you go underwater. No one cares.
Also not in the original. And further, I docked this one points because the bubble sound, I heard that and was excited to see how they did that in the NES. And it just wasn't there. Like, that would have been a cool thing if you'd been able to accomplish that on the, like, seriously, the hardware is a sine wave generator, a sawtooth generator, a square generator, and a noise generator. Like, there's not a lot you can do with that, but you could make a bubble sound, but he didn't.
Yeah, I put that one towards the middle. I thought it was pretty short, but I don't know. It was decent. So I guess I probably sabotaged what would have probably been the worst song on the list.
Right. You made it only second worst.
That's the problem with the panel voting, and that's actually why I think this is exciting, because someone can put something really high, but if someone else puts it really low, it's gonna affect its ranking.
Yeah, get some surprises in there.
This next one might be a bit of a surprise. Boss Battle 1 is all the way down here, like towards the bottom. That is the third worst according to this list.
Yeah,
that seems like a Dawn of Souls one. I don't think that one's on the original soundtrack.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it sounds like a boss battle, but it's nothing epic, so.
Nothing to write home about.
I didn't think it sounded like a boss battle. I thought it sounded like after beating the boss. It seemed really triumphant and upbeat. So if they'd called it something different, I probably would have ranked it a lot higher, but just, it seemed like in the context of where it would have been in a game, it wasn't right.
That's fair.
This next one was excluded from both Joe and Caleb's list, so that's why it's so low.
Oh.
Doesn't matter.
But I think that's kind of the charm of this, is because if it wasn't important enough for you to care about, it wasn't important enough to get points. And so that is Build a Bridge.
Oh, yeah. I saw that, but I was like, I don't want to put that one on there. Like,
Yeah, man, I loved that one. I thought that was like a really good bouncy whistle while you work kind of song.
Yeah, Steve ranked that pretty high, actually.
That was in like my top 10.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard it and I was like, yeah, I'm not I'm like, that's not a song. It's a tune.
Well, apparently the pure music person here thinks it's great, so we're a bunch of chumps because we just watched the scene in the game like, all right, whatever, they built a bridge, that's cool, I guess.
You saw it for what it is.
Is that what they did during that scene?
Yes, it's called Build a Bridge, and what they did during the scene, they built a bridge.
My mind is blown.
All right, next up is Loot.
Loot. Yeah, don't have that one either. Jeez, guys.
Yeah, I mean, loots don't even sound like that, so...
Yeah, that's why Steve ranked it pretty low.
Yeah.
Caleb gave it a decent amount of points. I think it was somewhere in the middle.
Is it Loot, Lute,
Yes.
or Loot? Okay, all right. Making sure.
It's basically the Crystal theme, but just a slightly less good arrangement. So that one's hard to rank because you already have like the better version of it on the same soundtrack, and so you don't want to give that same song like a bunch of points when it's the same thing.
I don't know. I got some in my list that are like almost the same tune, and then I put them right next to each other because like one is good, one is slightly better.
Right.
That's how.
Yeah, and I get that, and with leitmotif, and I've got a background in musical theater also, so I'm so used to themes being repetitious and repeating and being reused in different ways. But Loot didn't excite me too much with the way it was used. It was pretty boring.
Wait, is it leitmotif or leitmotif?
Oh shoot, I think it...
Leitmotif.
Leitmotif?
I don't know, dude.
I mean, I come from a computer programming background too, so I just like leet anything.
I'm just gonna go what my directors said. They said leitmotif, so I'm gonna trust them on that. Hopefully, my musical theater directors knew how to pronounce the word right, but I never Googled it. All right, now we're up to Boss Battle 2.
Yeah, that one's
Deafening silence.
Deafening silence.
Yeah, not on my list. So.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't know. I think this one sounded more like a boss fight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
but
this one had a lot of the same flaws of Boss Battle 1, but it did have a really great bass line.
Says the bassist.
Yeah. If we're going to take my opinion on anything, it should probably be on bass lines, right?
Right. The guy who hasn't played the game and is judging this bass purely on the music. Yeah, we should listen to your opinion on bass lines as a bassist.
Fair.
All right, moving on. Menu screen is above Boss Battle 2.
I got one.
Right. You got one that was ranked very low, but we do have menu screen.
All right, so for menu, I'm going to allow myself to talk for a second.
Absolutely.
I
You haven't had a chance in a while.
Okay. I have written down here, sounds too much like a lullaby for the game.
Oh.
And that's what the menu theme does. It reminds me of like it's something that would be in a music box or like some really creepy part of a movie. Like to me, it just didn't fit the rest of the game. So some of my rankings have to do with like how it was used in the game.
Yeah.
And that's one of those. Like it's fine. It's it's not a. I don't think it's a bad song. It's just kind of. It didn't really fit the game for me, and it was just a little bit lullaby-y.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, but I wrote down here that it was pretty forgettable. Like, I was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting piece to have on the menu, but
I don't even remember.
I don't remember what it sounds like now.
It's a waltz.
So, and I listened to it earlier.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for waltzes, so I ranked it the highest out of anyone on the panel. I enjoy it musically more than I enjoy its place in the game, where I can listen to that and really enjoy listening to it, but when I view it as like the menu song, it does seem out of place. But that's for me personally with it.
See, I spent a bunch of time Wikipediaing this to determine that waltzes were in fact a contemporary form of music to the Middle Ages. So it's, appropriate. Probably actually like the most appropriate song for the setting of the game.
All right, so the next song on our list is the airship theme.
Airship, yeah.
Who gave this a 1?
I gave it a 1.
Okay.
I thought it sucked.
Ooh.
This is the worst airship theme in the series. It is hot garbage.
Ooh. This is one of the few that I recognized going in. Like, this one started playing, I'm like, oh, yeah, that song. I thought it was a little bit busy. Like, a lot of these songs are super busy. But, yeah, I thought it's an iconic song.
I don't feel as hateful towards it. I don't think it's one of the better songs on the soundtrack. It's like in my lower half. I put uplifting and whimsical, and I certainly would prefer the more adventurous sort of themes. And as far as airship themes go, series-wise, yeah, it is. It's at the bottom.
Well, we'll do another episode of ranking the airship themes.
There you go.
Yes.
We're going to get super specific. We're going to ride this train.
We're going to rank the individual notes.
Ain't no getting off of this train.
Let's mosey.
This one, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think it is iconic, and it is, you hear it and you're like, oh yeah, that's the airship theme for sure. But it's not something I would choose to listen to. It's pretty upbeat and it's very adventure-esque, so it fits the setting and it fits the mood when you get that airship. Like, you're ready to explore kind of a thing. And it has that sort of feel to it, but I don't think I'd ever listen to that song ever outside of playing the game or preparing for this thing. I'm probably not going to listen to it ever again.
I mean, I've just been spoiled by good airship themes where I'm just used to these much better songs from other soundtracks. Like, this is the first airship theme. It's a disappointment for it. It's not bad. It is not a bad track, but it is just easily for me the weakest on this soundtrack.
All right, that's fair.
All right, now we've got something.
Ooh, all right, here we go on this one.
Steve, I'll let you introduce it because this is only this high solely because of you.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at the scores. Everybody, you two both ranked it as the worst song on the soundtrack. Greg gave it the second worst. It is the best song on the soundtrack. Excuse me.
Oh, what?
The shop theme.
Oh.
Now, to be fair, I'm talking about the shop theme on the remake. It wasn't as. It's a pretty okay track on the original NES soundtrack, but in the remake, that is the perfect town theme. It's piratey. It's great. I loved that song.
God. No. You can like what you like, but look, that's one of those themes. So Nobuo Uematsu, I was talking to Schweiss about this morning. Nobuo Uematsu is a person with very strong melodies. And unfortunately, or fortunately, he can create some extremely powerful things. And almost everything he makes is powerful and memorable. That is his strength as a composer. But at the same time, if said powerful composer were to make something bad, it would be the most powerfully bad piece of music you would ever find, aka S-Star theme.
I was just about to say that.
Oh.
Beat me to it.
And the shop theme from FF1.
Oh, I would say this one is the closest thing.
It hurts my ears.
This is the closest thing to the auction house in FF6 that I've come across for a long time.
I like to compare it to the town theme in in King's Quest V. It's nobody. No, all right.
No,
okay.
crickets.
Played. I owned it.
It is fitting.
That was what I played as a kid.
I won't deny you that it's fitting, but I can't stand it.
I'll actually give Steve a little bit of credit on this. Playing through the game recently, I did grow to like that a lot more. and I still put it low on the list. But
Like Stockholm syndrome sort of situation.
I'm a sucker for melody. Steve and I were actually just talking about melody versus rhythm before the podcast, and me musically, my natural inclination is towards really melodic music, and Uematsu is a very melodic composer, so I can find a great appreciation in his stuff. So I actually can listen to that on its own as a piece of music and enjoy it. So yeah,
I can't. And I don't think Schweiss can either, looking at we both. We did not discuss this beforehand either.
Yeah, we didn't say a word to each other.
Oh, wow.
Like,
okay.
let's screw that shot
I can't. Someone put
over.
it at. Steve, you put it at number
That was
one?
my favorite song on the soundtrack.
Oh, jeez.
He must be in a really good mood when he listens. You're like, yeah, this is me right now. This is.
I like piratey music.
he's a jovial fellow.
I'm gonna go steal some
That's
boats.
fair.
All right, next up on the list we have the ship theme, the boat, riding a boat.
I thought this should have been shop. I thought shop should have been this probably should have been the shop theme should have been the ship theme. The alphabet is confusing.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. I think they were right after each other on the
They
soundtrack.
are.
Too, so I
Yes.
was like, oh, which one is this?
I think the ship theme is much better than the airship theme. For me personally, I think it's a lot more melodically pleasing. It's catchier, flows better for me. Personal preference on that.
I don't know if it's on my list.
I think it was decent. It wasn't anything that stood out, but it wasn't bad either. It cracked the top 10, so
Wow.
says something.
Nice.
This one wasn't on somebody's list. The save theme.
It wasn't in the original soundtrack. There's a theme here, Greg. Songs that are on the original soundtrack aren't on certain people's lists.
That's true. So the save theme just not on everybody's list. Anyone have a comment on the save theme?
I actually on saved, I put it works. And I think it was just like a little 2-second jingle.
Yeah.
So
That's what it is.
bottom.
No
Yeah.
comment.
No comment.
comment.
I wonder whose list it wasn't on.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, next up is the last battle. Final boss.
Final boss.
I mean, I thought it
Okay.
was a solid final boss theme. It worked. I've cared about the chaos battle. It took me 2 tries to beat him, so,
I liked this one because it was a bit more variety. Like the previous 2 boss themes had sounded pretty similar, and this one was different. The distinction was nice.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent finale, but I don't know. I've played a lot of these Final Fantasy games, and the finales from here on out get way more epic. So this one was like, okay, it's a step up from some of the other stuff, perhaps. I still put it pretty low, but I felt like it was a decent enough finale to the game. It just wasn't anything that I'd listen to on the side, and that's rare for final boss themes, honestly.
yeah, it's probably one of the weaker ones in the series, but I think in terms of the soundtrack, it's right in the middle. It's mid-tier song, not one of the better songs in the soundtrack, not one of the worst ones. Steve and I gave it the exact same ranking in our list, so it's just straight in the middle.
Okay.
All right, next up, get an important item.
Oh, God.
Not on my list.
That is the second to worst, according to me. And it's just because it's like it's a 2-second jingle, and I'm like, yeah.
It's a 2-second repeat of the victory music.
It is, and it's not the shop, so it isn't the worst. it somehow beats out shop. But I feel like if it were as long as shop, I would probably have a different opinion.
Honestly, we have the same thing. I have a bunch. I have like my 3 little 2-second jingle ones ranked here, and then shop is below everything.
Dave Mustaine
Shop
needs to
it.
cover shop.
Damn, I don't. No, I don't think he'd want to.
He doesn't like shop either.
It'll be all bleeped out.
That would be appropriate for Megadeth to start ripping off video game music, wouldn't it?
And honestly, some of their instrumental tracks do have a old school video gamey kind of vibe. In fact, there's one track on this soundtrack that I was like, if this was metalized and put at the very beginning of a Megadeth record, it would just sound right.
That's where the original Doom soundtrack basically all came from.
Oh,
The
yeah.
disc is just
that-
like, what's my favorite
track.
Megadeth riff? Oh, let's do that one.
I found there's a YouTube video out there where they have like the song it was ripping off next to the song it was in Doom. It's like
It's
a 20-minute video, and it is some of them like there's the one that sounds like Master of Puppets that we all know.
Yeah.
But then there's like an Alice in Chains ripoff one that is note for note.
Yeah,
and beat
it's
for
and
beat.
the Slayer one, the ripoff of
How have they not gotten
South of
sued?
Heaven.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
there's
was
South
a
of Heaven.
video game in the early 90s. Nobody cared.
Right?
It's not. Yeah, that was
it was a free game too. They just gave it
shareware.
out.
Maybe
right,
they give
yeah.
it a pass because they're like, Doom is awesome. Yeah, rip off my stuff.
Right?
That's probably true. Yeah.
Metallica. I don't think Lars
They
will
just didn't know.
ever sing.
they just definitely didn't know. Otherwise, they would have sued the shit out of them.
I saw a video which compared like the new Doom game compared the soundtrack to the old game. It was like, here's where it's influenced each other in different ways, and it was like, oh, that's sort of interesting. But they, changed it from the old metal riffs and added dubstep.
Yeah. Now it's like a dubsteppy techno metal, which I still
I
like.
thought it was pretty great. Yeah, actually.
But it's not quite the same.
Right. It's no
No.
Crazy Train.
No, it's not.
All right. Next up on the list is the mid-boss battle.
Mid-boss. That is, gosh, I'm just not even gonna look at my list until I hear something that sounds familiar. Mid.
I mean, I think this is, I don't know,
That was another one that was added in the remake.
added in the remake. It's fine. It's enjoyable to listen to, but nothing crazy. It's
I
all
thought
right.
it was the first of the appropriately epic boss battles at the end of the soundtrack. Like, it didn't have that whole
Yeah.
triumphant, like, we've beaten the bad guy kind of sound that a lot of the other ones did. This was like, this is a boss battle theme.
It was intense.
Yeah, I put this as the top of the battle themes, just because it, like you said, it does sound. I wrote down here, sounds perfect. Like it sounds like what it's supposed to be, but it's still not a piece of music that I would seek out by itself. I just think it's very situationally appropriate.
Yeah, I think
So-
thus far we haven't gotten to the music where we would seek out on our own. We're still sort of building our way up to the good stuff. We're getting to the goods.
Getting to the good stuff. I mean, we already passed Shop Theme a while ago, so.
Yeah.
The pinnacle is behind us.
Right, this is a really weird order, you guys.
All right, next up is the ending theme, which, hey, this is one we all ranked. So go team, go.
Oh shoot! What's the ending thing called? Is it just called main theme?
Ending theme. The
Ending.
the theme at the end.
Is it happy ending?
You put it as happy ending. You live an interesting life, my friend.
You saved
Wrote
the
down
world.
the
How's that
title.
not a happy ending?
Which one's the ending theme?
I put final theme on mine. That
Final-
might have been
final
what it was
theme?
called. I
Final
don't know.
theme, ending theme, just the theme at the end. It's basically just a reinterpretation of the main theme, but not as good.
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's under happy ending on mine. Okay. So I put great remix of other themes brought together, and it's mid list for me, and I do like it. I like that music a lot. It's not as good as the ones that it's referencing.
No, I said it sounds perfect for the ending.
It kind
But-
of wraps up all the other themes in the game musically.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's not a great song necessarily. I think it's fine. Fits
I put
appropriate.
this one mid-low just because I kind of thought it should have been one of the boss themes. It was a better match for that vibe.
What's weird, I put this the highest out of anybody here, and I think I have the lowest opinion of it, which is weird. I'm not understanding why I put it so high, because it's all right.
Okay.
Top
Resounding,
five.
It's middle for me, but it's still higher on my list. Next up is Game Over, a song I only had to listen to once playing that game.
Congratulations.
I got a distinct Les Mis vibe from this song. I was half expecting like a choir of urchins to start singing about how they would like some more gruel.
And Hathaway's
it
like, my
wasn't-
life is miserable.
I tell you.
It's not what comes to mind when I lose, but I thought it was fine. When I lose, it's no sound happens. It's just pure silence, and then the anger just.
That's not on my list. Sorry, you guys can go ahead.
It's okay. We're slowly reaching the point where everything is on everybody's list. So
Right?
next up is
Wait.
Dungeon, which I ranked really, really low, and
Yeah,
everyone
you
else
didn't like
ranked
this one.
pretty high.
Yeah, tell us why you ranked it low, and then we'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay, it was kind of boring for me. It wasn't wasn't catchy. It wasn't something I could see myself listening to outside of the game. It just ranked lower for me. I don't know.
I put that it was creepy and intense all at once. And it kind of reminded me of The Flight of the Bumblebee a little bit. And I don't know. I dug it. It's in my top 12, I think, here. I thought it was kind of cool, personally.
Yeah, I put it in top 10. It reached number 9. It just creates kind of a sense of unease for the player, and I think that's perfect for any kind of dungeon in any game, really. So,
especially in FF1, which is unforgiving.
Yeah, so you are terrified and you're crapping your pants when you hear this dungeon theme because you're uneasy and you know you're about to die.
I rank this one as almost as good as Doom music. Dave Mustaine should cover this one.
I agree. I think that was the piece of music where I was like, I could see this as an instrumental in a
Megadeth song.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, that makes sense. It reminded me of Doom music and Megadeth.
And once again, it's not necessarily bad, but I think as we get higher on the list, we are going towards the all-time classics of the series. Like, we are getting to some of the best stuff in the Final Fantasy series, period. This game or not. Like, we are slowly getting to, like, amazing stuff. So, I mean, Dungeon's not bad, and it works well in the context of the game, but compared to a lot of the other stuff on the soundtrack, it just ranks really low for me.
Gotcha. Okay, what's next?
Undersea Shrine.
Okay, I got that one ranked real high. I thought Undersea Shrine was the Temple of Chaos theme, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's Temple of Chaos, but on steroids, and I really liked both of those pieces of music. I just thought they were great, gorgeous pieces of music, personally.
Oh, shoot. I only have Temple of Chaos on here.
It's pretty much the same theme, just like a different.
All right, well, I put this as number 6 on mine. I think it's pretty intense, and I think it's one of the tracks that I definitely remember from the game, and that says a lot since I played it years ago. So.
Yeah, we will get to Temple of Chaos proper a little bit later, but I think Undersea Shrine really worked for that dungeon. It's really enjoyable. That's one of the better dungeons in the game, and it's a good piece of music. I put it about the middle, but it's grown on me a lot since playing the game.
See, I listened to it and was like, this is Crazy Train. Again, are we playing Doom?
Yeah.
It's like it's a peaceful Crazy Train. All right, next up, we have the Inn.
No, you skipped Floating Castle, I think.
Oh, shoot, I skipped Floating Castle. Oh, shoot, all right. Sorry,
Which I
next
gave a
up,
super high score to. Why did I say that? Oh, yeah, it sounded like Nine Inch Nails with a digital blacksmith is what I wrote.
Yeah, the Floating Castle theme. Yeah, Floating Castle is really good, too.
I liked that one.
We're getting to the good stuff.
I pretty low, probably for the same reason you didn't put Undersea Shrine that high. It's just like, Dungeon that high. I thought that it just made me uncomfortable, and that's probably the point in the game. But listening to it on its own, I was like, ugh, okay.
This is one of the few ones on the original that was in the remake that I ranked pretty high, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of intriguing, just an interesting style, but not the best. Not the best.
All right.
Next up is the Inn. So you sleep there,
right? This is basically a rehash of the shop music, so I loved it.
It was
my second favorite.
It is 4th from the bottom on mine because it reminded me of shop. I was like, this is shop 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
I can't get behind this.
All right,
Greg,
lads.
you ranked that one pretty high. Why did you like Inn better than shop? At least 20 steps better than shop.
The arrangement was better for me. I was able to get sucked into the melody much easier with the Inn theme than I was with shop. I can appreciate shop, but I think if I'm listening to a version of that melody, I like the Inn's arrangement better.
I do too, but I agree it probably isn't 20 spots better than shop. I'd say 10 spots better. Those shop, get an important item, 7 blank spots, then Inn.
All right. We're done with the bad tracks. We are at the good stuff, lads.
Which is impressive because some of these still only have 3 ranks from us.
Right. But still, we're at the cream of the crop here. We are at The Fanfare Victory theme is next on this list.
Okay. Is this fanfare or is it victory?
I put them together.
Oh, you put them together. Okay. Well, I have one ranked really high and then one ranked kind of low.
Yeah, I just kind of put that into just the same thing.
Okay, we might have different things because I only looked at the NES version and I didn't look at the remake. So I put fanfare as a less good, forgettable victory theme, and then victory theme I put pretty darn high. Victory, it's not music that I don't think I would just listen to on its own, but because it's Final Fantasy and it represents you beating a battle, there's like an inner joy I get out of hearing it. It's like,
that's one of those ones you just like sing to yourself when you accomplish something walking around your day-to-day life. Like, oh shoot, I found a quarter. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
And then people look at you all weird.
You're gonna have to pay the licensing fees.
Yeah, Steve, you ruined it for us. That's only in your version of the show, guys. We're cutting it out. We can't pay for that. We're an indie band. We don't have that kind of money.
We've gone many years straight up playing Final Fantasy songs.
If it's in parody.
And no one said it.
All right, fair use and parody.
Yes.
Yes. We were totally making fun of it, guys. Unless that upsets you as a fan, in which case we weren't.
Yeah, okay.
All right, next up, Church.
This one I felt like it felt really fitting to the church setting. Like it's, if I were to have the soundtrack and then have a bunch of pieces of paper with the names of the tracks, I would definitely tag this one as the church. Right. It fit very well. It's not something I'd listen to, but it works.
Pretty much how I ranked it. Like that one came up, was like, yep, this sounds like a church theme. It's mellow, it's nice, good, go for it, good.
Yeah, Steve ranked it the highest out of all of us, but also he loves Jesus the most out of all of us, so that probably helps.
Jesus is pretty great, you guys.
All right, next up, Corneria Castle.
Ah, yes. I put perfectly captures the beauty of a small town. I just thought it was a really nice piece of music and really friendly. And it's one of the first pieces of music that you hear in the game. And I really dig it.
Yeah, I think it's a very well done song. It screams Final Fantasy 1. It is one of the ones that I remembered from the soundtrack from when I played it like 3.5 years ago. Very well done song.
Yeah, I think at this point, these songs from here on out are all songs where I have the melody completely memorized, where I can hear that song in my head, no problem. Other ones, maybe like Shop, I might need a little bit of a refresher on, but these are, when I think of the great songs from Final Fantasy 1, it's this one and everything else up.
See, I docked this one some points because like it's distinctly anachronistic. Like they very much went for an 18th century musical style that, doesn't match the setting of the game. It's sort of like, it's the suspension of disbelief thing where we're talking about modern musical stylings in a, fantastic game. This is an even weirder version because it's the wrong ancient music style.
Shut up, nerd.
I did a lot of research in this.
But just remember that in this game, airships exist.
Right.
It's true.
I'm just saying.
Also, it's mostly medieval, and then there's like, I'm a karate dude.
Yeah. That
Knights, wizards, and black belts.
That's right. I see no other way.
All right, next up, the battle theme.
Battle theme.
It's got 69 points. Nice.
Oh, I want to hum it because I love I love humming that theme. It's just it really started the tradition of great like battle themes throughout the series, like really distinct ones.
Says the guy who ranked it the lowest.
I probably did rank it the lowest, but I still love the theme. Look, it's in my top half. It's an awesome theme. It's just I do have a soft spot for like ballady sort of music, so that's kind of like all the ballads kind of like went up above it. But as far as like really big like hulking kind of like crazy rock and roll, violence, I dig the battle theme a lot.
Yeah, I think
this
it's.
game.
I put it probably. I think I put it around the middle of mine. I don't think it's. I think it sounds. It's another one of those ones that sounds perfect for what it is. But I don't know. I didn't think it was that great of a piece. Like it
Wow.
sounds like a battle. It sounds like something that if I heard it, I'd be like, oh, that'd be some good battle music. Like that would work really well in a fight scene kind of a thing.
I love the dun 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 dun. I just love that little when the music gets into that point. That's just eargasmic right there, and then it goes back into its regular kind of rockin' self. I don't know. I dig the theme.
This was my third from the top, just largely because like it's a pretty great song, and it's also I was noticing a lot of these songs are really busy and energetic for like background music. A lot of them seemed like they needed to calm down a little bit, and this one had that going on, but like it's a battle theme, so it's like, oh yeah, this is totally appropriate. Be busy and energetic when you're fighting.
This one I ranked a little bit lower on my list. It's one of my least favorite themes in the series in terms of battle themes. I think what I look for in a Final Fantasy battle theme is a little bit more of a sense of heroism and excitement, and this one definitely has a more dire feeling, and I think it hadn't quite hit the sweet spot of battle themes where you get to like the 4 battle theme, the 7 theme, 8, 9, where it's like there's a sense of danger but also a sense of excitement and fun, versus this one is just a sense of danger, which isn't necessarily bad but not my preference either.
Okay, I can respect that.
So it's still good, and it has grown on me quite a bit, but I used to actually really dislike that one, but I like it now, so...
Good.
I'm learning, slowly learning. All right, next up is The Abandoned Castle.
This is the highest rank one with only 3 votes.
There you go. Yep, that's not on mine.
Yeah.
Like everybody put it in there, gave it 20 or more. So that puts it in everybody's top 10 except yours.
That's right. It doesn't deserve.
It doesn't deserve to exist, but it deserves to pretty well win.
Yeah, it did pretty well considering you didn't even acknowledge it, so...
So tell me about this theme.
I mean, I don't know. It's atmospheric and brings you in. Like it's a really fun piece. It gives you the sense of wanting to explore the area really well, and I think it just sucks you in with that.
I distinctly wrote down that if I heard that while exploring an abandoned castle, I would not want to explore. There were too many like booming, the building's about to fall over sounds. Like I'm not exploring this. This is not a sound structure.
Says the guy who broke into a haunted prison with me.
I mean. Shush. Let's not say anything incriminating online.
Oh, right. We didn't do that.
Says the guy who didn't break into anything or do anything illegal.
Right.
This is very interesting.
Yeah. This one to me, I thought it was a very well composed piece. I think it's a good listen. I enjoyed it a lot. This is another one that fits, but it's also an enjoyable song for me. So it kind of hits on both of the right places as far as like a Final Fantasy theme.
All right, next one is a little bit controversial in terms of the rankings. It's a diverse one. The town theme, ranked highest by me and lowest by Steve.
Oh yeah.
Second highest by me. Schweiss, where you got town at?
Town is number 8.
Okay, wow. Okay.
I just thought it was.
So
I thought it was dreary. This was a bummer of a town.
Well, maybe you need a little bit more shops in your town in order to make.
Like right after town came shop, I was like, no, this should have been the town theme. Like a town is a bustling, fun, busy place, right?
I think this might be you not playing enough JRPGs, but a town theme, especially a first town theme, is meant to be sort of quiet and peaceful before you really get sucked into the adventure.
This sounded like Raised and everybody's walking through the ashes.
There is a little bit of that. The princess was just kidnapped, right?
All right.
And so there's a little bit of sadness when you go, if it's the right town I'm thinking of. If it's not, just ignore what I'm saying. But when you go into the town, then the princess was taken, you go into the castle and you got to, investigate. The town, it does have the right feel for a town that's, dealing with some stress. Okay? This is important to them.
They should have had that in the title then. Be like, town, but also 9/11 just happened.
I wrote down, yeah, that's right. Basically.
There goes all of our fans, Steve.
I hummed this for weeks is what I put down, and I did. I hummed it for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's a beautiful piece, in my opinion, but not in Steve's.
I think it's great. I think it's a very calming track. I think it's the softest The one that I'd probably go to sleep to the most, of course, number 2 being Shop. So I can enter some kind of freak dreamland where I do nothing but run and sprint and work and never sleep. Again, kind of a thing. So, yeah, this is a good one. It's good.
I think with a lot of Japanese music in particular, their melodies are really good at capturing a bittersweet emotion. And so I think the town theme really captures that bittersweet, reflective feeling as like reflecting on your childhood and past in the town you came from, and how it's peaceful, but you also have a little bit of hurt and memory behind it you want to leave behind. And I think it really encompasses the feeling of a hometown well. That's what I get from a lot of hometown themes in JRPGs in general, is that really bittersweet emotion.
I agree with you, and I really dig this theme in particular.
All right, and next up is the Prelude.
Oh man, I put that as number 1. This is hurting me.
That was number 1 for a little while on mine, but it was also the first one on there. So
I think it's a fantastic piece, super memorable. I've seen people on YouTube like play it on the guitar and stuff, and I get really jealous, just because I have tried playing it, and I have it in our new theme for our show, and that was I don't know. I'm just not good enough to do that kind of like do it in a sweep picking sort of thing that a lot of people I see do that. I just love the arpeggios. I think they're beautiful. And I know Nobuo Uematsu like jokes about this piece of music, saying, well, he made it up in like 5 seconds.
It is really simple.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Like, that is way easy on... If you play it on piano, that song is stupidly easy. Like, stupidly
I'm sure
easy.
it is easy.
It's just, it's not built for guitar the way that instrument is set up, so it's annoying on guitar, but on piano it's just like, easiest song ever.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful, regardless of its simplicity. I dig the hell out of it.
yeah, I think it's an extremely iconic song, and it's one that any fan of Final Fantasy will know off the top of their head.
Yeah.
It's
My
huge.
lowest ranked.
Steve put it his worst song from the soundtrack.
Yep. I thought it was a little boring and repetitive, and like so I listened to the remake version of it and it said you could accomplish this entire thing using one channel on the NES. And then I listened to the NES version, which was a little bit better, but it was still like it's just like way too simplistic. The thing I like with old NES music is when they really figured out ways to get creative and push the limitations of their hardware. And this doesn't do that. So
to me, though, it sums up the feeling of the game. So if you're listening to this just as a soundtrack, I don't know how I would feel because I don't have that context. But it sort of has a mysterious vibe to it. Sort of has a sad vibe to it. To me, it just like represents the image of the crystal that we see in Final Fantasy all the time. Just sort of that light blue sort of shade, I think, really goes with that music really well. And I don't know, there's something fantasy mystery thing about it that I dig. But yeah, maybe it is pretty simple.
If it had been way shorter, I might have liked it better. Like all those just like little bloop 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 songs that they had later on. Maybe if this would have just been like, I would have been much more okay with it.
You could just press the A button to move to the next screen.
Oh.
You can play as long as you want, dude.
No one stays on there very long.
Yeah.
So here's my thing with the Prelude, specifically in 1. I ranked it pretty high on my list, but and this is something that's been done with the soundtrack where Nobuo will have a theme in one version of the game and then expand upon it later. So if you listen to the Chocobo theme from Final Fantasy II, it's just the beginning of that theme and it never moves into the second section. And so it's just the intro. And so that Chocobo theme never gets to the second part of the melody, which is ultimately, I think, the stronger part of the song. The Prelude from this version pretty much just plays the arpeggio and never gets to the second half where that melody on top is played, and so it isn't as strong as later versions of it. So the Final Fantasy I version of the Prelude, not having that melody on top, ranks a little bit lower because of not having that additional melody, but still ranked very high on my list because the arpeggio and the way Nobuo did it was, I think, simple but genius.
Okay.
I agree. The Prelude's better later on when it gets that second verse kind of kicking in on top. It's great.
All right, next up, Temple of Chaos.
Temple of Chehos. Okay. I dig the hell out of it. I think it's a great theme. I wish it was in the game more than it is, and just
needs more
fantastic.
Chaos
Dig it.
Temples.
That's right, man. It's beautiful, melodic, adventurous yet haunting, which is the whole, like kind of what the series is going for.
Yep, I said it was intense. I liked it a lot. So there you go.
I thought it sounded a lot like a Nightwish song, which I was pretty into. It got a little less interesting as the song progressed, but I liked how it began. And that was one of the few that also was, I felt, distinctly improved in the remake soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. It's good. I ranked it really high, but I don't know if I can add anything that you guys didn't already say.
I did. We did touch on this earlier. Undersea Shrine is basically the same song, just a little bit different. I thought Undersea Shrine was a little better, but obviously, we, as a group, ranked that one way lower. So, yeah,
You're wrong.
You're wrong. The panel knows all.
yeah, I guess.
The panel is God.
So does that mean we're going to kill the panel at the end of this podcast?
It's
It's a Final Fantasy tradition.
It's true.
All right.
Get a new panel.
Next up is the Gurgu Volcano.
Yeah, I must have ranked this one really low compared to you guys. I put a lot of fun, very catchy hook, but it wasn't one of the themes I remembered from the game. So maybe I just didn't have the attachment to it as the other themes higher.
Yeah, this one to me was a really mysterious and intriguing song, but I put it at number 7. So it's pretty solid, but it doesn't have the sense of the iconic feel to it that some of the ones that are above this one do. And I don't think it's as good as Temple of Chaos or Abandoned Castle, personally, but or Prelude.
I dig it though. It's in my good part of the list.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I put it pretty high just because it was a bit of variety. This is another one that improved in the remake. Things were starting to sound a little bit samey, and then Gurgu Volcano came up and was like, all right, there's a bit of a mixing things up a little bit. That's nice.
I could see that. Yeah, it does stand out kind of differently to it, and that's also like when is this played in the game? That's when I was listening to this. I was like, where?
Presumably in the Gurgu Volcano.
Honestly don't remember that section or like when the music played at all. I listened to the soundtrack. This was one of the ones where I was like, oh, okay, this is one I don't know.
Was the volcano that you don't remember it?
I don't know, man. Maybe it's the place with like all the dwarves in it. I have no idea.
The volcano was the place where you would get injured every time you walked on lava, and you had to walk on lava to get through that place.
Vague memory.
It's been a while.
There's multiple Final Fantasy games in some sort of volcano thing.
So I actually ranked it the highest of the panel, and I had my opinion of this before playing the game. I ranked it really high as a musical piece.
Okay.
I dig it a lot. It's fun. It's got a good melody. It might be because I played Chocobo Racing and they remixed it in that game. All the music in Chocobo Racing is variations on old Final Fantasy music, and they did a really good arrangement in that game, and I really got attached to the melody. And like I said, I've been listening to this soundtrack in isolation of the game for years. Since, age like 12, I've been listening to this soundtrack. So I've got a little over a decade of being used to these songs. And that one just always stood out as being like fun, good melody, just fun to listen to in isolation.
I can respect that.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Next up is the main theme, aka World Map.
What number are we
We're
on
3.
right now?
We're in the top 3.
Top 3. Okay, I was like, we're getting up there, right? Okay. Overworld map. My note here says just good vibes. That's what I put.
Yeah,
just feels good.
This is the main Final Fantasy theme, and it carries on throughout the series. I think it's extremely iconic. As much so as the Prelude, although I think the Prelude, like I said earlier, does become the superior song later on, but that's only after they add in a little bit of extra oomph. But this one the main theme is fantastic in Final Fantasy.
I think that's actually a different one coming up on the list. What we're talking about is the dun 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 dun.
Oh,
dun, dun,
that one.
Yes, the world map theme.
I'm thinking the opening.
No, that's
theme.
that's coming up.
Main theme for the series. Screw this FF1 soundtrack label.
So he's saying overworld theme.
Well, that's the main theme. That's what
and then there's main theme.
No. The main theme Main theme on the soundtrack is this one, but it's not the actual
The
main
naming
theme.
the naming was poor, but what we're calling this, it's called
Okay.
main theme on the soundtrack, and opening theme after this is called the main theme for the series, which is dumb, but for
Okay.
the sake of this, I'm referring to it as world map theme.
Got it. World map theme is still iconic. It's still one of the songs I think of when I think of Final Fantasy 1. It's in my head forever.
It's a great
It's
thing.
probably ranked lower than it necessarily should be, just because I docked some points for the weird panning on the remake arrangement. Like, that's one of those ones that was great in the original, and then they remade it with just, like, weird shenanigans in the arrangement.
That's
Yeah.
Steve's East Nashville hipsterism coming out on that one.
I liked it better in the 80s.
Yeah. I
crime,
honestly, I didn't
danger.
look at the remake.
That joke is only funny if you live in Nashville. If Toddzilla listens to this, he'll love that. All right, top 2. This one I thought was going to win, but didn't. Matoria's Cave. Number 2.
Yeah.
Thank God it didn't win.
I must have been the one who put that one the
It was
lowest.
between you two. You guys did not like it that much.
I dig it. No. Just because it's not number
That's fair.
2 doesn't mean I don't like it. I dig this piece of music. It reminded me a lot of like a little Mozart piece, just a little bit. Now I'm listening to the NES version. It's got a really plucky sort of atmosphere to it, and I'm not sure if it fits within the game itself because Matoya was kind of a scary looking thing, but the music is really nice, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, Matoya was that wizard lady that you had to bring the...
Yeah,
Yeah.
the I2.
Yeah. I think this one is a classic theme as well. I don't really care for it that much, though. I put it as number 13. So
Oh wow, so you put it the lowest.
it's still up there, but as far as being top 2, I don't know. It's one of the ones that comes to mind when I think of Final Fantasy 1, but I don't think it's nearly as fun or as iconic or even intense as some of the ones that I placed above it. So
I mean, I'm going to disagree on that. I think that is one of the most iconic songs from the series, period. I think it's a great melody. When I think of some of the best music from the series, this stands out. And this is from someone who, for years and years and years, hadn't beaten the game, had played a little bit of it, and that song always really stuck out as one of the ones I would always hear fan remixes of, and made Maitoria seem like a much more important character than she was. I don't know. I think it's got a really great melody. I love that track, and I did rank it the highest out of all of us, but Steve ranked it just a hair below me. So obviously there's some sort of melody that grabbed him to it as well.
Yeah, I think it had some interesting percussion and rhythm choices. Like a lot of this soundtrack is just a lot of like arpeggios, including this song. But I thought that this one did a good job of having an arrangement that offset that in an interesting way.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that thing. It's beautiful.
And now the number 1 song from Final Fantasy
Here we go.
1. The opening theme / main theme of the series /
There we go.
poorly labeled in the soundtrack, but the main theme. The song that isn't the crystal theme that people think is the main theme. The other main theme.
theme.
everybody thinks the prelude is the freaking main theme, and it's so annoying.
I'm sorry you have to deal with that.
You're wrong. You're all wrong.
Yeah.
Every day I see them
I
and their wrongness.
think I put it as number 6. I love it. I think it's a great theme. And certainly as a piece of music that has survived Final Fantasy, it's like, for some reason, like, I don't know, just out of luck, I guess, it just is the perfect piece to sum up all the Final Fantasy games. Great adventure song, and it really gives you a sense of scope and longing.
Yeah, this shows you. This
It's
is like, this is Final Fantasy in music form, I think. It like you said, it gives you that sense of adventure. It lets you know that, hey, it's time to go. We're doing this thing. Like, it's in every single one of the games. I think it's a fantastic piece, and it is the musical representation of the series, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic song. I ranked it as my number 1. Looking at this list, I actually called the top 3. Like, by coincidence,
Wow.
The order was slightly off. I had opening theme, main theme, and Matoria's Cave as my top 3 in that order, and I just had the panel just rank them in reverse.
Somebody fudged the results.
I didn't. That's just how the math worked. So I think the middle ground guy probably had the pulse on the overall panel. But I mean, yeah, that theme has stuck around in the series for a reason, and it works so well within the context of this game, but in the context of all the games it appears in. When you hear it and, you know, the closing credits of 7 unexpectedly, like it just like it hits you and you're pumped to hear it. When you hear it at the end of 15, it's bittersweet. It works well wherever it's placed. And it's just a fantastic piece of music I can listen to on its own any day of the week.
Yeah, it's like a James Bond theme when you hear the actual James Bond theme being played in a James Bond movie. Like you're waiting for that moment within the movie for it to act. They use it sparingly now, and you're just waiting for the da-da, ba-da, da-da. You're waiting for that moment, and you're kind of waiting. It's not the same feeling at all, but you're waiting for that moment. Usually in the closing credits of these Final Fantasy games, you're just waiting for the main theme to be played. And it ties it all together. It's really nice.
This was one that when I went back and listened to the original version of it, I found myself a little bit disappointed that like the remake had all those neat snare rolls to really emphasize things, but they didn't have that in the original, even though that was totally technically doable. I feel like their programming in the original their audio programming was surprisingly mediocre.
Well, you know, the original is Nobuo. I think it was one of his. No, he had done like 6 other games before this. But,
yeah, you should listen to the FF12 remastered version of the opening theme. It's great.
Yeah, I
orchestrated.
This is pure Nobuo, and then the remaster theme, I think, is someone arranging it from it. It's a person who probably respects Nobuo's work, or at least, you know, slaves under the company, under his shadow. But whoever arranged it probably had listened to this music for years and was like trying to find ways to jazz it up or something like that, especially when it came to his version. So I wonder what little, you know, when you hear a song and you start adding little harmonies to it or whatever that maybe aren't there in the original, you know, he was probably doing that for years and just decided, okay, a good snare hit could go right here, and it'll really emphasize the melody or whatever.
And the thing also to remember, this was the first game in the series, and it had to really establish that tone and atmosphere. You know, once that initial core sound was developed, it was easy to expand upon it, but to figure out what kind of vibe you want to give off and then just create something from scratch is brilliant, especially when it's done this well. And, you know, the themes have been developed and changed over the years and modified, but for a first go around, it is a home run as far as I am concerned. The games, gameplay wise and story wise, still need a little bit of time to pick up. But as far as the music, they hit a home run first time out of the park, as far as I'm concerned.
It's an iconic score, and it honestly, it's a great score. The only thing is that like the composer just got better.
Yeah.
So luckily, the composer just got better. I mean, if this was your one score, I think you could probably retire happy, and he improved even. So. I don't know. I dig it a lot. I have one piece of music on here that must have been called something different on the album I was looking on. So I have it called Funeral. I'm wondering if that's the church theme.
I think I put that as church theme. Is how I just labeled it. Like, I think that's what he meant.
I put that one really high. I feel like it's a great piece. And I don't know. I put it above main theme, personally. But,
what?
I put Just Beautiful, and I thought it was a beautiful melodic piece, which is how we should end. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, man, you do you. This is America. You do you.
Right. I do have to issue a correction already. I double-checked, and the NES had 5 channels, 2 pulse channels, a triangle wave, a noise generator, and a sample channel.
Okay, can you tell me I'm sure many people don't care, but can you tell me, do they program this? Do they record it? I have no idea.
They actually programmed it. So basically what you would do is you had those 4 channels, which would go out to, I believe, a mono audio channel, maybe stereo. But you could send a signal to each of the 4 channels that would basically set frequency and volume. So a pulse channel being a square wave, so like a really like harsh buzzing sound that could sort of have a built-in low-pass frequency where it would go like, kind kind of thing based on how you set the pulse width. And a triangle is much warmer. That's the sort of the bassy sound that what you often hear as a bass. And you just like send these sound waves to it, except for the samples, which was actually like straight recordings that you would store in memory.
See, I want to know the hardware and software involved in this process. It's such a mystery to me. I have looked up like, how do you make NES music? But it sounds like a intense process, even though it's just like only 5 channels.
Yeah. Yeah, you basically just have to give direct commands. Be like, all right, triangle wave generator, play a wave at this frequency, this volume, starting at this timestamp, ending at this timestamp.
Do you think the composer would do that, or would someone else do that?
I'm not entirely sure.
I imagine back in that time, it would probably be the composer doing it.
It's quite likely.
One of the things that I read is that Sakaguchi, the Gooch, gave Uematsu specific instructions on even what notes to use due to the limitations of the hardware. So, to work within all those restrictions and to make something that good is really impressive.
It is. It might be one of those things. It's like, the more things you have going against you, the more genius you're going to come out of it. So the more rules you have, the more creative you're going to be. That just might be proof of that concept. Yeah,
absolutely. Like the scene in Rocky where he's going on the ice with Adrian talking was originally supposed to be them sitting at a restaurant. And then they're like, we don't have the budget for that. Okay, let's go ice skating. And, we don't have the budget for backup skaters. Oh, now it's more intimate and personal.
So you just got to get creative, and then obviously that was a breakthrough. Yeah, 7 people made this game. 7 people are credited for making this. So that's still pretty impressive to me now. I think Mortal Kombat though hasn't beat. I think Mortal Kombat was 4 people, but even that's even near as complicated as a piece of work as this is.
Although considering Mortal Kombat needed live actors to play the characters.
Yeah. Man, those 4 dudes made the whole game and wore all the different outfits.
Those 4 dudes and their 1 female friend.
I don't know about that being the case, but as far as the person who was probably coding in all that stuff, that probably was Nobuo, actually.
Quite likely.
If I think quite likely.
All right, real quick, I'm going to run through the entire list again and then just get our overall thoughts on how the panel ranked it. So from the bottom up, Crystal Restoration, To Someplace Deep, Boss Battle, Build a Bridge, Loot, Boss Battle 2, Menu Screen, Airship, Shop, Ship, Save, Last Battle, Get an Important Item, Mid-Boss Battle, Ending Theme, Game Over, Dungeon, Undersea Shrine, Floating Castle, Inn, Fanfare/Victory, Church, Corneria, Battle, Abandoned Castle, Town, The Prelude, Temple of Chaos, Gurgu Volcano, World Map Theme, called Main Theme, but World Map Theme, Matoria's Cave, and Opening Theme, but actually Main Theme, because naming choices. So what do you guys think about the panel's results? Were you surprised with how they turned out? Were you happy with it?
I don't know why you all hate Ship so much.
I think Shop is a little high.
That is solely because of Steve. That is all his fault.
Yeah, but otherwise, pretty good list. Most of the classic stuff is on the top. It's where I would think that the list would kind of go for amalgamation sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that I was worried that the main theme for the series wasn't going to be the number 1 track because how much of a blasphemy Joe can be at times, but all was right, and it's where it belongs.
All's right with the world,
and the rest is fine. Yeah, as long as opening theme and main theme are 1 and 2.
Main theme is 3.
Okay.
1 and 3.
Now we're all.
Wait.
Matoria's Cave got sandwiched in between the two of them.
Yeah.
Do the votes.
I could dock it further, I guess.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys were awesome. Big fan of the show, so it was fun chatting with you. You want to tell us where we can find you?
Yes. So our podcast is Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. So if you just put Final Fantasy in the search, we'll be the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th result, depending on the week. Yeah, that's right. There are some other more boring Final Fantasy podcasts ranked above us, but
sorry, I had a cough.
You can just ignore them. I am Joe, and you can find me at Joseph DeGolyer, DeGolyer, on Twitter. If you want to tweet me, I talk about movies a lot and complain about how I have no time. Schweiss, what about you?
You guys can tweet me at UFF Podcast.
Yeah, it's Schweiss's. It was our show's Twitter, and since Schweiss was the only one who went on it, it was just like, just make it yours. So now it's Kaleb Schweiss's at UFF Podcast. If you want to find the show outside of iTunes, ultimafinalfantasy.com. We do have a video game show called Nude Clan, which is rude, crude, and nude, and we give video game reviews and verbally abuse each other for 2 hours a week. And I have a Godzilla podcast, and we have in fact ranked a huge amount of the Godzilla movies that we've gone through, where I do commentaries over the Godzilla movies with my friend Drew. And then we also have Super Sexy Swinging Fan Fiction. We got a lot of podcasts, guys.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff.
So go check all that out, geekdomentertainment.com. There's a good overall website to go to.
Yep.
And obviously, if you're listening to this on the Lipstick channel, you know where to find us. iTunes, YouTube, lipstickgeneration.com. Just look up Lipstick Generation because we lost a battle with the internet. Naming our band Lipstick was a poor decision, so that's why everything is /Lipstick Generation. Find us through that. All right, well, thank you all so much, and until next week, have a good one, folks.
Enjoy the grind.
Enjoy the grind.
Yeah.